blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another installment of Let's Blow This Up. I'm your host, Jason Sircone, and today I want to spend a few minutes talking about a subject that most new podcasters up. And it's a very easy fix. And by the end of this episode, you're going to see why you should be doing more with this small element that can actually play a very big role in your podcast's overall lifespan and overall discoverability. And it's the trailer. Your podcast trailer is the first piece of content that typically goes live. And if it's done right, it can set the table for a potential listener to learn exactly what they're going to experience when they take in your show. Now, to give you some of the back end science on this before we get to what a trailer should do and could do and will do if you do it right. When you set up a podcast to go live, I'm going to operate from the school of thought that you're using a host like Buzzsprout, for example. That's the one I use for my podcasts. If you aren't, that means that you're manually uploading new episodes to all of the directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and iHeart and Amazon. It would take forever to hit all of those platforms. But when you use a platform like Buzzsprout, you load it there, one push of a button, and it disperses to all of the directories. In order to get your podcast listed on Apple, on Spotify, so on and so forth, you have to have at least one piece of content. And this is typically where people use a trailer, which makes complete sense, right? The trailer not only serves as that piece of content that you need to get to Apple, or Apple, Spotify, again, across the board, all the directories. But once you get there, you now have something in place that when people tune to your show or may discover your show randomly, or you may push them to the trailer to listen to what they're going to experience when your show goes live, you now have that piece of content in place as well. So serves a couple masters in that respect. But this is the problem, and this is where I see new podcasters effing up. They're not doing anything with that trailer to captivate a potential listener. They're just using it as a placeholder. And by that, I mean they're doing a quick little 20 to 30 second blurb. Hey, we're doing this podcast. It's going to be called this, and you should subscribe. We'll see you when the new content comes out. And that's it. Yes, it does work in getting your podcast listed because now you have that piece of content. But why wouldn't you want that content to work for you? Something else I've noticed in my podcasts, in clients' podcasts, the trailer sometimes gets more traffic in the very beginning than actual episodes because that podcast is still so fresh and new. People are looking at the trailer to find out what the show's all about. So if you're just using it as a placeholder with that quick 20 to 30 second intro that really does nothing other than get you on the platform like Apple and Spotify, you're missing out. I mean, you're really missing out on what that could do because we live in a world where we have a lot of options. If we want to listen to a podcast and we really want to get invested in that podcast, we need to know why. You need to tell me more than, hey, we're doing a podcast. We'll see you soon. You need to tell me what the show is all about. You need to tell me why you're doing this podcast. You need to tell me what's in it for me. You know, when you're looking for new content or new information or new anything, that's the question you have at the front of your mind. What's in it for me? That's the question we always are asking because anytime we're going to devote time and attention to something, we want to know what we're going to get from it. We want to make sure there's a return. So if we're going to listen to your podcast, we need to know why we should listen. And you may have your loyal brand advocates already that are going to listen because they're already loyal to you, but what about the people they turn to and say, hey, my friend or this brand that I follow, they have a podcast coming out. You should listen. Okay, I'll check that out. And then they go and listen to the trailer and it's fluff. It's 20 seconds of nothing. Okay, it seemed like fun. And it's out of their mind. And then when you do go live with your show, it's harder to get their attention again. Wherein if you were to give them a good trailer, they might subscribe and follow the show on the spot. That way they know when the show goes live and new content's coming in, they're ready for it. And they know they're going to get that experience because you set it up that way. So don't just use your trailer as a bookmark. Use it as something that can work for you. Now, you can do this in a number of different ways, and I've heard a number of different podcasts do this well. What I like to do is set the table with what could be considered a mini episode. It's not just a, hey, we're coming. It's, let's talk a little bit about what this show is all about. Let's give you an idea of when you press play on the first episode that goes live, here's what you're going to learn. In addition to that, if you're planning properly, and again, I'll go back to the seasonal conversation we've been having. I'll go back to the multi-episode batch recording sessions you should be doing if you're doing a weekly show, so you have content stored. If you've got content at your disposal already, which you absolutely should before you ever go live, story I talked about back on season 2, going live way too soon. But if you go live before you have content in the bank, you're setting yourself up for a disaster, because eventually life's going to catch up. And when you're no longer ahead, you run the potential of falling behind, because life will happen. I talked about that last week or 2 weeks ago with the flu that knocked me down. Had I not had content prepared, I would have not been able to do anything because I couldn't talk, didn't have a voice. If you set yourself up for success with your podcast, you're going to have content banked, and you can pull some clips and do a little compilation or a little mashup. Call it what you want, but put that content in front of your audience so they can get excited about what they're going to hear. You spent a lot of time building that content out. Use it for good. Put it to work for you. Assemble 3, 4, 5 little mini clips from your first season or from your first run of episodes and make that part of your trailer. Really get involved with your trailer. I made a trailer in the past. I will say the most successful trailer that I ever did was Evolution of Brand. That was my old podcast, and I look back on the traffic that trailer got, and I knew that when people were listening to it, they were getting something special, because it wasn't just come listen to my show. It wasn't just the clips. I interwove the clips from different interviews with stories about what the show is going to be about, talking about what a person would learn. I answered that what's in it for me in each segment going through that trailer. And if you go back, that show's still live, you can listen to that trailer. I interwove stories and what you're going to learn with this clip from this person's experience and how it interwove to the overall theme of what I wanted to build. And then take a listen to that clip, come out of that and go right into that. I did that, and I layered that a few times. So what I ended up with at the end of the day was about a roughly 15-minute episode that, yes, allowed me to get active onto the platforms because I had content. But when people found that trailer, even when the show reached its 100th episode, if people were still discovering the podcast, they were able to go back and listen to that trailer and get a real feel for what the podcast was all about. I see far too often, and I'll tell you, this is the story with Let's Blow This Up. When that name hit me and I knew that's what I wanted to run with, first thought was, this is always my first thought, this is probably already taken. And when I went on to Apple Podcasts, yeah, it was taken by a kid that did a 14-second trailer 4 years ago. And that was all he ever did. It was fair game for me to run with it, and here we are today. And that trailer is still there. So when you search for Let's Blow This Up, it will also come up, and you can see what I'm talking about. It's a perfect example of what you shouldn't be doing with your trailer. 14 seconds is nothing. You're not going to get anything across. Again, it serves as a placeholder, nothing else. Make sure you're maximizing the use of your trailer. I'm not saying you have to pull clips from your episodes, but you have them banked, right? Why not use them? If you want to just get into more detail about what the show is all about, great. If you work with a co-host, maybe have a little riff back and forth. Bottom line is your trailer needs to do more than just serve as a placeholder. And it absolutely can if you treat it the right way. So look at all the content you have at your disposal. Before you go live, make sure that you're doing something thoughtful, something meaningful, and think about your own consumption habits. When a good trailer comes out for a movie, and it does a great job in telling the story of what you're going to experience with that movie when it comes to the theaters, you're more prone to say, ooh, that looks really good. I got to file that away because when that comes out, I want to go see it. Your podcast can do the same thing. Your trailer should be designed to excite somebody, to get them looking forward to your podcast coming out. That way, when it does, they're filing it away, or better yet, they're hitting subscribe or they're hitting follow so they get a notification when your podcast goes live. If you're well planned out, you can also use your trailer to announce your launch date. So those that find the trailer know exactly when that content's going live. And if you hook them with the trailer, then they're going to be more prone to tune to the launch episodes, or if it's your first season, whatever the case may be, the idea is to get them excited. So don't use your trailer as just a placeholder. Use it as a means of getting people pumped up for what you're going to be creating. I want to hear more good trailers out there. This is what gets a person captivated. It's going to most likely be the first thing they hear. Unless you're very deep into your catalog, then that's another story. However, if you're just getting started, use your trailer to your advantage. Create something fun, impactful, and make sure it serves a purpose much more than just being a placeholder. And with that, we are going to bring this episode of Let's Blow This Up to a close. Hope you had a great time, because I know I did. I will see you on the next solo episode when it's just one-on-one, me and you. But if you haven't done so already, jump back in the archive. Season 3 is rocking and rolling. We've got a ton of great content already archived and a ton more set to come your way in Season 3. Until our paths cross again here on Let's Blow This Up, I am Jason Sircone, reminding you to stay explosive.